What is going on, Phantom Army? It's your boy Phantom Stilts, and welcome back once again to a brand new Streamlabs tutorial video. Today we're taking a look at the best recording streaming settings for your X264 encoder versus your NVENC encoder. Now, we already did a best YouTube recording and streaming tutorial for NVENC new. Now, the difference between these two encoders is X264 actually uses your CPU versus NVENC or NVENC new, which uses your GPU. To encode the stream or recording. So today we're looking at the CPU doing all of the encoding headroom and all of the encoding power instead of your GPU. So we're going to go to our settings like we did the last time with our NVENC or NVENC new encoder. We're going to go down here to the left that says settings, this little cog in the left hand corner down here. We're going to pull up that menu, and the first tab we're going to go to is the output tab. Now, the output tab obviously is everything having to do with your encoder and all the hardware involved in streaming or recording your gameplay or whatever you're trying to record or stream. So the audio track, we're going to keep at 1. We're on the streaming tab, of course. You want to set your output mode to advanced as well. That way you can see all of these settings. If you have it on simple, some of these will not be available to you. So like I said, we're going to keep on the streaming tab. We're going to keep the audio track at 1. We're going to have obviously X264, the software encoder, as our encoder, not NVENC or NVENC new. We want our CPU doing the majority or the actually all the encoding that is needed for the stream or the recording. We're going to have enforce streaming service encoder settings unticked. We're not going to rescale our output because if you have a pretty powerful PC, you don't necessarily need to rescale your output from whatever you have. Now, if you have a lower end PC or a 2 PC setup, you might think about rescaling your output down to 720. We'll get into the video tab here in just a second, but I want to show you the X264 settings first, then we can get into the rescaling and things like that. So our rate control is going to stay at the same thing we did for the NVENC or NVENC new encoder. For our GPU, it's going to be CBR, which is constant bitrate. Again, if you have a lower end PC, I would maybe want to rescale or change your rate control to VBR, which is again variable bitrate. It will fluctuate based on your broadband internet and the Ethernet coming through your house and a couple of other factors. Keep your bitrate at 7,000. Use custom buffer size is going to be unticked. Keyframe interval is going to be set at 2. Profile is at main, and then tune is obviously going to be none. Now, if we go to the recording tab, everything is pretty much the same except for your encoder. So we're going to keep our type at standard. We're going to keep our recording path. Again, make sure you take note of this recording path because if you don't, you'll never find your video and then all of this will be for naught. So make sure to take note of that recording path so you know where your videos are going to be housed. Generate file name without spaces, again, going to be ticked. Software X264 is going to be your encoder, not NVENC or NVENC new. You're not going to rescale your output. Custom muxer settings is going to be 0. Rate control again at CBR. Now the bit rate for recording, as we explained in the last recording video, there's a lot more leniency with your bit rate and you can go as high as your system can possibly handle. Now I would tweak these settings if you have a lower end PC. I wouldn't necessarily use 30,000, maybe use 10,000 or 15,000, something like that, just to make sure that your computer can handle it. If you're not happy with the quality at 10 or 15,000, maybe bump it up to 20, maybe 25. And if your computer can handle it, 30,000 megabits per second. Or excuse me, kilobits per second. Then we're going to keep your keyframe interval for recording at 2 again. We're going to keep our CPU usage preset at fast and our profile at main, and then tune and X264 options separated by space are obviously going to be nothing. So we'll go back actually into our video tab and I will tell you how to rescale your output based on your system and what your system can handle, because X264, the trade-off between NVENC and X264 actually uses your CPU, like I said, but there is a lot of work involved in encoding a stream. So your CPU is going to take a hit. As you guys can see, my CPU is at about 20% capacity. And then if you go to the NVENC encoder, the NVENC encoder actually is a small chip on a dedicated graphics, your dedicated graphics card for Nvidia that's used to encode the stream. It actually has a specified chip in that graphics card that is able to handle the stream, and that's what the NVENC or NVENC new encoder is. AMD, I don't believe has a dedicated chip. It might, I'm not sure, but you will also see a different option if you're going to use a GPU encoder for AMD. You won't see an Nvidia option. Obviously, you'll see an AMD option. So let's go into our video tab. So right now we're recording our base canvas at 1920 by 1080. That is the size of this monitor that is on that you guys see the picture on. And then our output scaled resolution is 1920 by 1080 as well. So there's no rescale taking place right now. There's no diminished quality and going down to a lower quality video as of right now. We're going to keep our LanCool sharpened scaling 32 samples at that. We're going to keep our common FPS values as for our FPS type, and then our common FPS values is going to be 60 frames per second. Now, getting into rescaling, this is the last point I'm going to touch on before I end the video for you guys. So rescaling your output is what happens when you don't have a strong enough PC to run a 1920 by 1080 stream. Now, a lot of streamers, especially on Twitch, will use a 1600 by 900 resolution. Now, it's not quite 1920 by 1080, but it's not quite as bad as 1280 by 720. So that's a sweet spot that a lot of streamers tend to use. So that's usually what I do when I stream. I rescale it down to 1600 by 900, and it'll come out with its own actual output scaled resolution on Twitch as 900 by 60 frames per second. So in order to rescale your output, you could either obviously do it here and just change this value right here that has you basically can't interact with it right now. So the output scaled resolution will be 1600 by 900, and you'll change that actually by typing it in on your keyboard and then pressing enter. You can also rescale your output through the output tab for streaming. You'll just hit this little tick right here, rescale output, and you'll be able to put in 1600 by 900, as well as the recording if you want to do it by 1280 by 720 or possibly 1600 by 900. You will obviously hit the rescale output here again and put in 1600 by 900 or 1280 by 720. And that works with either streaming or recording tabs, and you can also do it within the video tab by just typing in, like I said, 1600 by 900 or 1280 by 720 and hitting the enter button. But that's basically, guys, in a nutshell, what the X264 settings are that I would use if I was going to use X264. I have a dedicated graphics card, an Nvidia an Nvidia 1660 Ti in my gaming PC. So I use the Nvidia card usually to stream because it takes an awful lot of headroom, about a third of the headroom that I would use for my CPU. Because remember, while you're encoding the stream, your PC is also or trying to display the game and run the game that you're playing. So you want to take as much load off of your CPU as you possibly can. So that's why I would recommend, if you don't have a great gaming PC, offload your stream to a second PC. That way it can do all of the encoding, and your computer, your gaming PC, can handle all of the headroom needed for playing the game. If you have a dedicated graphics card, obviously use Nvidia or AMD as much as you can. That way your CPU is able to run the game and basically doesn't have anything else running on the CPU but what you're playing on your gaming PC. But without any further ado, like I said, that is the X264 settings that I would use for streaming and recording. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you guys are brand new here. We're almost at 750 subscribers on the channel. I would really appreciate it if you guys would join the Phantom Army and come along on this content creation journey we're having here. But like I said, without any further ado, this is your boy Phantom Stilts. I will see you guys on the next video. Take care, guys.